Hi, I'm attorney Jack Inman, and today I wanted to talk about what happens after you've been arrested. So this is applicable to the state of Tennessee. In particular, we practice in East Tennessee. And it may vary county by county, so don't take this as necessarily applicable to every single county and every single jurisdiction in the state. So after you get arrested, you'll typically be held either for 12, sometimes 24 hours, occasionally longer. At that point, there will be what's called an arraignment, which you'll be going before the judge. He's going to announce your charges. He's also going to set your next court date. Now, once you have your next court date, that's when you need to go out and find an attorney. It's important to note that if you believe you qualify for a free attorney, that is to say you are below a certain income threshold, your finances are low, and you believe you are what's called indigent, then you should ask for an attorney right then and there at your arraignment hearing. Judge will look through your finances, he'll look through your income, and he'll get you to fill out what's called an affidavit of indigency. And that's where you self-report how much you make. The judge is going to look at that, and he's also going to look at whether or not you were able to post bond, and he's going to determine whether you qualify for free legal counsel. If you do, great, you'll be appointed a public defender. If not, you're going to have to go out and find a private attorney, in which case you will have to pay for it out of pocket. I would highly recommend that you do either qualify for a public attorney, or if not, you do get a private attorney. Trying to go through the criminal justice system without representation is a difficult task, not something that I would recommend. So, you've had the arraignment and you've been given your next court date. What happens at your next court date? Well, it'll typically either be set for status or what's called a preliminary hearing. Oftentimes things are set for preliminary hearings and the hearing ends up getting pushed out. So don't think that just because it was set for what we call a prelim, that prelim is actually going to occur. But you should be prepared to have that prelim at your first court date after the arraignment. So, what is a preliminary hearing? Well, it's also known as a probable cause hearing, and it's where the prosecution is going to lay out sort of a mini trial. Now, it's not going to be where you're found guilty or innocent, but it is going to be a chance for you to understand what evidence the prosecution has against you. And the prosecution is not going to put forth all of their evidence, right? They're just going to put forth enough so that they can convince the judge that they had probable cause to arrest you. And keep in mind that probable cause is a relatively low threshold, and it's not enough to convict somebody. It's actually one of the lowest, it is the lowest threshold in the criminal justice system. So it doesn't take much for probable cause to be found. So don't get alarmed if the judge does find probable cause for the arrest. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to lose at the real full trial. Now, oftentimes the preliminary hearing is never held. You have a right to one, and technically it's supposed to happen within 14 days of your arrest, but oftentimes it doesn't happen because you enter into some sort of plea negotiations. Not all, but I would say the majority of criminal offenses in this area are settled before the preliminary hearing, which means the prosecution and your attorney will discuss, and they'll look at your past criminal history, they'll look at the facts of this case, and really what they're getting at is they're trying to size up, and this is the prosecution, they're trying to size up how strong their case is against you. Right? If they don't have good witnesses, if they don't have good facts, if they don't have good evidence, they're going to be more likely to offer you a plea deal. And the worse their case, the better the plea deal they're going to offer you. And so your defense attorney will negotiate what they think is a good plea deal with the prosecution. They'll present that to you, and you can either say yes or no. It's entirely up to you as to whether you settle or whether you go to trial. Now, oftentimes, and I would say probably 80 to 90% of the time, people do settle prior to trial. Not all settlements take place before the prelim, though. Sometimes the preliminary hearing takes place, and in between the prelim and in between your real trial, there can be additional plea negotiations. And so during this time frame, both sides have a much better grasp of what evidence is on the table and what proof is going to be put forth. So it often leads to plea negotiations and an accepted plea deal. So I hope that gives you a brief understanding of what's happening behind the scenes leading up to your trial date. And first you have the arraignment, then you should get counsel. At that point you're going to have your preliminary hearing, which point it may or may not take place because your counsel may reach an agreement with the prosecutor. If they do reach an agreement, fantastic. If not, they'll move towards the preliminary hearing, which is an opportunity for you to hear the prosecution side of the case. It's also an opportunity for the defense attorney to cross-examine any of their witnesses. And don't worry, you as the defendant do not have to get on the stand during the preliminary hearing. You can just sit there, take notes, you can be quiet, you can do whatever you want. You're not going to be forced to speak at your preliminary hearing. After that point, you'll move up to what's called criminal court, or sometimes circuit court, and at that point there will be various status hearings, and ultimately it will lead to a full trial if you continue down that road. Now again, the vast majority of people end up settling their case, which in criminal court we call plea negotiations, prior to the actual trial date. So I hope that was helpful. If you need help with any kind of criminal matters, feel free to give us a call. We offer free consultations, and I would be happy to talk with you.